Hello, Biology 300 students. This is Mr. Parker, and this is screencast session number 1 of the characteristics of life. And we're going to take a look at what does it really mean to be alive, and what are the characteristics that classify an organism as being living. Okay, so what you should have out is your some notes, notebook, note-taking from your packet. We're going to discuss on the factors of characteristics of life and what makes an organism to be considered to be living. All right, so let's go ahead and list these out for you. As you can see here on the screen, you have the cellular organizations, so everything's made up of cells. Everything must be able to reproduce. All organisms have something called metabolism. This is how they obtain and use energy. We have homeostasis of your body, heredity, responsiveness, growth and development, and adaptive evolution. Okay, we're going to take a look at each one of these a little bit closer as we go through this particular screencast, and hopefully you'll be able to define and help clarify some of the, if there's any misunderstandings on some of these different terms. Okay. So, first statement here: all living things are made up of cells. Okay, and most of you probably know that. And the cells are the smallest units capable of carrying on life. Okay, and all the life function. Okay, we have some different types of cells. But when we're talking about the cell in general, the cell could, on its own, carry on its all life functions. Okay, from taking in food, getting rid of food, moving, all that kind of stuff. A cell is able to do. So all living things are made up of cells. Okay, you can see some examples here of some more of the what we call the unicellular organisms. Okay, and then we also have some of the multicellular that you can see here that's been come up on your screen. The plant that we have, the Spirogyra here. Okay, and then we have some of the amoebas, and so so that you can see some of the different other unicellular organisms that we have on the screen. All right, so a couple of different cell types. I've mentioned two different terms. We have unicellular versus multicellular. Okay, unicellular is entire organisms made up of a single cell, and you definitely should make sure you write down the examples. You should know the examples of bacteria, protists are particular examples of the unicellular organism. Okay, so these are organisms again that are made up of just one cell, but it carries on all the life functions for that particular organism. Then we have the multicellular organism. Okay, and these organisms is made up of many different cells, and these cells have specialized functions within the organism. So, for example, like the human body, okay, we have many different cell types. Okay, we have, if you think about it, you have heart, muscle cells, you have skin cells, and so on and so forth. And so they all have individual functions, but as a whole, they work together so they make your body run a little bit more efficiently than some of these unicellular organisms. So the multicellular organisms are a little higher order. Okay, your unicellular organisms are usually more primitive. Okay, they're the first type of organisms that were found here on Earth, whereas the multicellular are a little more advanced because they have multiple cell types within the organism. Okay. And you can kind of see here some of the different examples. Here we have a single-celled organism on the bottom and also on the top. And then down on the bottom, or on the right-hand side, you can see the plant as an example of the multicellular. And you can see here, this is one cell here, a second cell. You can always tell a plant cell because by its shape. Okay, it looks kind of like a brick shape or a rectangle, and they're all kind of linked together in that fashion. Okay. The second one is all living organisms. Okay, second characteristics of all living organisms must be able to reproduce. Okay, and reproduction is the process of producing new organisms of the same type. All right, so if one species produces the same type of organism, there's two different types of reproduction. Okay, this particular picture that you see here is asexual reproduction, where the organism is going to be basically going through a cellular division to create multiple cells from one single cell. Alright, so the first one there is asexual, and that's what I just mentioned before. You have a single parent organism producing itself, okay, reproducing by itself, and then you have then you have sexual reproduction. It says two different parent organisms contribute the genetic information, so male and female, involves a combination of these male and female sex cells. Okay, we're talking about the female ovaries, and the male, what we're talking about is the sperm. Okay, There's some advantages to both. Okay, asexual, if you think about asexual here, the advantage to that is they do not have to have a mate. But the disadvantage is there's not a whole lot of genetic diversity. Okay, so that this particular organism, there could be a certain type of disease that could wipe them all out because there's not a whole lot of diversification within their genes. Now, sexual reproduction. Okay, now the drawback could be that you need to find a mate, but the positive is that in sexual reproduction, their genes. Okay, the gene pool is great. There's a lot of genetic diversity occurring. So diseases won't wipe out a certain the whole population. It might wipe out, it'll knock out a certain area, but it's not going to wipe out the whole entire species because of the genetic diversity that's found within them. Okay. So again, reproduction, asexual and sexual reproduction. Okay. You can kind of see different examples here that we have on the bottom. All right. So the next one is all living things obtain use energy. This goes under the idea of metabolism. Okay. Living organisms need energy to grow, develop, repair damage, and reproduce. Okay, so make sure you jot these down. This is why you have to consume, okay, as an individual, organisms have to consume energy or produce their own energy, is because they need to grow, develop, repair damage, and reproduce. Okay, there's different types of, basically different processes, I guess you would say, that make up metabolism. All right, the first one we call is anabolism. And this is the process of building up complex substances from simpler substances. So we're going from simple to complex. Okay, simple substances to complex substances. It's building up of, as you can see here, a couple of examples, building up of cells and cellular components. So if you think about building up of cells, everything within the cell, the different organelles that build up your cells. Okay, so we're going from simple, like maybe the mitochondria, which is just a small part of the cell, to the actual whole cell. Or if you're talking about cells, you put a bunch of cells together, and eventually you can create tissues and organs and organ systems. Okay, another example would be photosynthesis. Okay, if you think about photosynthesis, you can see here in this particular example, you're taking something very simple like sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water, and the plant is going through this process, and they're becoming a lot more complex. Oxygen and this glucose, such as sugar. Okay. This plant is going to use this glucose, right, as energy, and it's going to give off oxygen as the byproduct. Okay, so that is anabolism. We're going from simple to complex. It's the building up of the it could be tissues or whatever, or photosynthesis. Okay, the second type of processes that builds up a metabolism or makes up metabolism is called catabolism. Okay. And this is the process of breaking down complex substances into simpler ones. So it's the exact opposite of what anabolism is. We're going from very complex something very complex to something very simple. Two examples here you can see is we have digestion on here on the right hand side is cellular respiration. Now think about digestion. It could be that cheeseburger that you're eating. Okay, if you eat the big cheeseburger, and what your body's going to do is it's going to take it in and it's going to actually break it down into all the individual chemicals, and it's going to ship it off to your body to be used. So you're going to take out the carbohydrates, the lipids, okay, the proteins, and what does your body need? It's going to break it down and use it for what it needs to. And then you think about cellular respiration, it takes in that oxygen. It's kind of the reverse process of photosynthesis. It's going to take in that oxygen that you get, and then through the process of respiration, it's eventually going to give off that the CO2, and it's going to give off as a byproduct. Okay, so this is catabolism and anabolism. Okay, anabolism again is going from simple to complex. Catabolism is going from complex to simple. Now, if you put those two together, okay, what we have is what we call your metabolism. Okay, all organisms go through metabolism or some form of it. Okay, this is the total of all the chemical reactions that occur within an organism. Okay, and as you can see here, it's the sum of, and kind of just abbreviated for yourself. But this is what happens in your body. It's you're either breaking things down or you're building things up. And kind of this diagram kind of shows you that. You have this CO2 gas, okay, and what's going to happen is through anabolism, you're going from simple to very complex types of what we call polysaccharides. Polysaccharides is a sugar, okay, and a large carbohydrate, and what your body is going to do eventually is going to break it down through this catabolism process and produce this energy that you need, okay. And this process is going to cycle through over and over and over again. Okay, so that's metabolism. Okay, the next one is homeostasis. All right, your body must maintain this homeostasis, a stable state of conditions in the body that are necessary for life. Okay, and the four main areas that your body has to maintain this balance is the body temperature, as you see here, water balance, blood volume, and pH balance. Okay, so within your body, you have to maintain, your body's temperature, okay, 98.6, and your water balance, and the amount of blood volume you have. Okay, you lose too much blood, it's bad. Okay, if your pH is off, it's not good. Okay, and as you can see here, your body, within your body, you can see here's your blood, here's your water, okay, you have your pH. If everything's not working correctly, everything's not flowing in your body correctly, okay? So you have to maintain this homeostasis through these four main areas in order for your body to work correctly. All right, all organisms pass along hereditary traits, okay? Genes carry hereditary information. These genes are composed of DNA. Okay, and DNA is a nucleic acid that is basically carrying your genetic information from one organism to the next. Okay, and this is why children resemble what their parents look like. Okay, so these genes again are composed of DNA. So DNA makes up your genes, and your DNA is actually made up of what we call nucleotides. All right, so this is what's being passed on from your parents to you, and then you to your offspring. All right, now when you're talking about hereditary, there could be some chance what we call mutations. Okay, and these mutations could be random, and basically what this is just a change in DNA code. Okay, and these mutations can be passed on from generation to generation. It all depends on where the mutation occurs. If it occurs in your sex cells, okay, those will be passed on to your offspring. Okay, and not all mutations are bad. Some actually can be beneficial if it makes them better adapted to the environment. And this is what we call random mutations. It is what causes some of the differences when we start talking about evolutionary changes and adaptations that we'll look at here a little bit later. Okay, another one is all living things must respond to their environment. Okay, organisms react to a stimuli. And basically what I have here is some different stimuli that are listed. You have light, temperature, odor, sound, gravity, heat, water, pressure. Those are just some of the examples of a stimulus. Okay, think about it. If you're in a dark room, the lights turn on, what happens to your pupil? They get smaller, right? If the temperature's too hot, what happens? You start sweating. Okay, if it's too loud, you need to cover up your ears, all right? Again, if you don't have enough water, all right, you're going to need to get something to drink, okay? A couple of examples here I have on the screen. You have here the stimulus predator-prey, okay? The stimulus for this prey to run is the predator. If that prey does not respond, right, to its environment, it's going to die. And this is what we call elongation. This is basically a plant. As you can see here, it curves towards the sunlight, okay? And again, this plant is responding to its environment. You probably have seen this maybe in your house. In the wintertime, you can actually see the trees actually bending more towards the sunlight than you do in the summertime. Okay, so this is again response to your environment. You must have a stimuli that's going to make the organism respond. All right, all living things must grow. Okay, growth basically means you're going to get bigger in size. Okay, as we start talking about the cells and stuff, we'll get into cells and how organisms grow. Okay, all organisms are not just one big cell. Okay, what they are multiple, hundreds, millions, trillions of cells, depending on what type of organisms we're talking about. So, in order for an organism to get bigger, they're basically what they're doing is they're having more cells, multiplying their cells. Okay, because if you think about this baby elephant here, it's not that its cells are smaller, it's the fact it just has less cells than the mother does. Okay, so growth means to just get bigger in size. All right, next one is development. Okay, all living things develop. Development involves a change in the physical form or the physiological makeup of an organism. And you can see here in the couple different types of organisms, they are changing and developing from one type of organism into the next, or basically growing into a new shell, because of a new exoskeleton, if you could call it that way, because of the size it needs to get developed and get larger. All right, and the last characteristic of life is all living things adapt to their environment through evolution. Okay, so adaptation. When we're talking about adaptation, what we mean is the process that enables organisms to become better suited to their environment. If you're better adapted to your environment, most likely you're going to survive. Okay, and basically, what the adaptations do is they increase an organism's fitness, and fitness is basically their survivability and their ability to reproduce. And the more fit organisms are going to be better adapted to their environment. Okay, and as you see here, the species obtain adaptations through evolution over great periods of time. And these adaptations are usually through some type of random mutation that's occurred within their genes that actually had made them better suited for their environment. So they're able to survive, able to reproduce, able to pass on those genes that are going to make them better suited for their environment. Okay? And this is just kind of showing you the time frames, okay? The different eras, timeline that you can look at. Okay, the Precambrian down here this is about what they predict. Scientists predict the Earth to be about 4.6 billion years old, and then if you move all the way up to where we are now to the present time. Okay, but basically what this is showing you is that it takes a long time. Millions of years typically for organisms to change over a period of time. All right. So again, these adaptations make the organism better suited for the environment. All right. Real quick, kind of wrapping things up. I'm going to show you just another example here is the cactus. Okay, most of you know the cactus are out in the desert. They typically don't have a whole lot of water. And what these cactus plants do is they have these waxy leaves, as you can see here in stems. And what that does is it helps store water, okay, and reduce the amount of water loss. And this is an adaptation that the cactus has developed over, thousands of years that makes them better suited for their environment. Okay.